Welcome to the Talking Ball podcast brought to you by HP Poly. I'm Nicola Hume. This is the podcast where we talk all things Oracle Red Bull Racing. And let's be honest, what a 2023 this team has had. My goodness, 21 race wins. Their first ever Drivers' Championship 1-2. Their second consecutive Constructors' World Championship and 9 blooming marvellous Talking Ball podcast episodes. Yeah. What more could you want? So, on today's episode, we are going to take a look back at some of our favourite moments of the year here on Talking Ball. So, first up, we caught up with the big boss man, Christian Horner, to talk about the flying start that Red Bull had.
It's been the most successful start to a season we've ever had in our history. So, to have won the opening 3 races, as you say, and a couple of 1-2 finishes, beyond our wildest expectations, imagination. So it's been a great start to what is an absolute marathon of a season. So we're not taking anything for granted at this point in time.
Yeah, now I know it is a marathon, but also there must be a part of you that's feeling incredibly confident right now, surely.
I think I've been around too long to get complacent on anything. So there's always that nervousness of what's going to happen at the next race. And updates are coming through. These regulations are still relatively immature. We know teams are going to have developments coming over the next few races. So, things can change quickly in Formula One, and you're always looking over your shoulder.
Now, I know you're saying that teams could be bringing in new things all the time. So are there particular teams that you've kind of got your eye on at the moment?
Well, it's the usual candidates. I mean, the team that's really surprised us, I think that everybody so far this year has been Aston Martin.
Yeah.
They've made a great step forward, and Fernando has been driving incredibly well. And then Ferrari, Mercedes, they look like they're going to make a step at some point during the season, and then even teams like Alpine are showing real flashes of pace and form. So you can't write anybody off, and that's it'd be very dangerous to do so.
I mean, there are some teams that have struggled with the regulation changes. There are some teams that have had a bit of an iffy start to the season. So what do you think in terms of confidence, where you see yourself in 20 races time?
Oh, 20, I mean, it sounds a long way.
It literally is 20 more races.
Look, we've just got to treat each race individually and give our best at every Grand Prix that we go to. And then the championship tables, I've always said, tend to take care of themselves. And so long as we turn up at each race, get the best out of ourselves, the drivers, the team, the reliability, the strategy, then the championship tables, as I say, they tend to deal with themselves.
Is there anything that's happened so far in the first 3 races that you are particularly proud of?
I think, going out and getting a 1-2 finish in that first race is always mightily difficult, particularly in the first Grand Prix of a year. And I think it's been an incredible winter for, the whole team. They've all worked incredibly hard off the back of last year's championship, with the handicap of the less aero time that we have and so on. So it's been a massive effort by everybody involved, and there's a real buzz around the factory. You can feel the energy, the positivity that there is just around the place, and results like we've had only fuel that.
One of the most fascinating episodes was when we got to sit down with the legendary Adrian Newey, and we got to see that red notebook. You know the one. We saw it in the flesh. We're thinking big going 100. This is literally object number 2, but okay, we'll see how we get on.
So you obviously warned me about this, Nicola. Thank you. So
welcome.
I've chosen my faithful old sketch pad stroke notebook and my pencil.
Oh, fabulous. Just there, yeah.
Thank you. As you can see, it's been through the years. I think I've had this for more than 10 years now. I'll be honest, most of it, that was actually... that's
not
the
handwritten.
Australian notes.
There we go.
That's not handwritten. But you go a bit further in and you'll have all the junk. Because
you're quite old school, aren't you?
I am.
In a good way. There's no complaints there, but you're old school. Give me a pen and paper, let me doodle it. That guy.
I am. Pen and paper is my kind of default, if you like. Yeah. So I scribble a lot. I still work on a drawing board. And that for me, as opposed to a CAD system, and that for me is kind of first language. Yeah. So I graduated in 1980. It was mentioned earlier, CAD systems didn't really kind of come to maturity until mid-90s, let's say. So I was been 15 years on the board by then, and I kind of looked at other guys, and they seem to, certainly the early CAD systems, it's changed over the last few years, but they spend a lot of time and a lot of energy getting the lines onto the CAD. And once they've done that, because they'd used so much energy doing that, they seem to be reluctant to use the electronic rubber.
Yeah.
So I think certainly I can, for general layouts and concepts, I can work quite quickly with a pencil and rubber.
Yeah.
I think through training effectively from a very young age, then I seem to be reasonably good at mentally visualizing things. So the fact I can't draw in 3D doesn't bother me, because I can easily break 3D into 2D.
Yeah.
And as I say, I think more than anything, it's my first language. If I tried to now convert to a CAD system, then it would be like talking a foreign language. I'd never be as natural. So that's kind of part of my job, is then drawing on the drawing board. Then have a team of 2 or 3 people who take my drawings, scan them, because now everything has to be into digital form at some point. And then they turn those into 3D drawings and so forth. But before you get to the drawing board, you've got to have the ideas in the first place. And that's where the Sketchpad. I mean, I said to the team, when we knew that we were going to come up with the 100 objects, I remember saying to the team, I was like, I'm going to be disappointed if it's not a paper and pen that you bring in. I just had a feeling that that's exactly what it was going to be. So I'm so pleased. Object number 2, going into our Hall of Fame, is your notebook and pen. To celebrate Women in Engineering Day, we were joined by 3 incredible women that work here with Oracle Red Bull Racing. We were joined by Hannah Schmitz, Anna Groom and Roseanne Elvin. And we spoke to them about what life is like here at the factory. Do you 3 know each other?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah.
So do you ever get to kind of bump into each other and kind of work together and develop things together? Or is it just a case of bumping into each other while you're here at the factory?
I've worked with Hannah before, because I used to help with volunteer for the ops room.
Yes.
When I used to work for the F1 side.
Exactly.
Nice.
So as I was saying, all that vital support we need. So students obviously help us out a lot of weekends, and then staff are welcome to volunteer and help us out, like listening to driver radios and so forth. And so, some great stuff sometimes because obviously it's really interesting to kind of feel part of the race, and it's actually quite a nice environment.
It really
to work
makes
in.
you feel like you're part of the team when you do the ops room, because you really get to feel what actually goes on behind the scenes.
Because this place is so vast. This factory is just, it's massive here, that you would assume it might be quite rare for 3 of you in 3 completely different departments, knowing each other well enough and sort of working together is actually quite nice to see. I wasn't expecting it.
And I think also because you don't always see as many women around the factory. Sometimes we will do things like go for a walk at lunch or things like that. I mean, we haven't actually done that for a while. So. But I do try
the
to. Yeah, exactly. The intention's there. So there is a little bit of a network if you want.
I was going to say, actually, myself walking around the factory, I have spotted quite a few women walking around. Is this something that you've noticed an improvement in?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. When I started, I think there were 7 of us at all in the DO, and now I feel like there's a lot more. So,
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I've worked in automotive and all of that for a few years, so I know what it feels like to be a woman in what is predominantly a men's industry. But actually, it's quite nice to see so many ladies doing so well, and it's so inspirational for young girls. Seeing you 3 sat in these seats, doing what you've done, learning what you've learned, and being sat where you're sat, which, a few years ago probably wouldn't have happened. Next, we got stuck in with the drivers. We spoke to Daniel Ricciardo and his former race engineer, Simon Rennie. Now, we recorded this the day after they announced that he was going to be joining AlphaTauri. But on the podcast, we spoke to him about what it was like regaining his confidence as Red Bull's 3rd driver.
So it started with the simulator. The first thing I did in 2023 was a couple sim sessions, and that was for sure just for me to get back into the groove and to learn the car, but just kind of get back into my flow. And then
I don't think that was as easy as you thought it was going to be.
Yeah,
because whilst you were talking, I was thinking when he first came back, I was quite surprised. Knowing Daniel, when he came back, how he was. I didn't say this to you at the time.
No, this is good. This is good.
Therapy session.
I don't deny it.
No, he was almost like he was a little bit
timid?
No. Well, yeah, you were definitely not as confident as I know you are. And you were just like a little bit hollow in a way, and felt like you were doubting yourself a little bit, and you were a bit concerned about whether you could do it again, because obviously you'd had good success with us, and the last couple of years haven't been quite successful, but and it didn't necessarily click straight away in the simulator, and it took you that first day that we did together. I don't know if you left with a good feeling or not after that first day. You still seemed a little bit unsure of it all. And then you went away, had a bit of time off at home. And then the next time you were in, it was like you were already a bit more bouncy. Maybe you'd had a bit more time to think about it. You're a bit more, like, say, halfway back to being yourself. And then we had a good day on the simulator, and I think you just drove it and naturally like you wanted to do, and it just sort of clicked a little bit. And then the confidence from then snowballed, and you built and built and built. And then by the end of that day or the next day, you felt like, he's back again. And it's more like a normal Daniel that we were used to from the past. But it was really marked. The first time that we saw him again, you were a bit subdued, I'd say.
I mean,
but it's nice to see him back again.
Yeah, Christian now said pretty much the same thing. How's that make you feel hearing that from him?
No, it's good. Like, I mean, in a way, I don't mind hearing that at all, because it also makes me feel a little bit better in a way about, for whatever, let's just call it the last year. Because obviously my results weren't what I expected from myself, what anyone probably expected from me. And I think stepping out of that and having a bit of time off over summer and knowing I wasn't going to be racing this year, so just having time to think about other things, then obviously getting back in, I became, obviously people were aware, and then I became aware of, oh yeah, okay, I had lost a little bit of something, internally. And he's right. Like the first day I was, still unsure and probably still some, call it habits maybe from the past year were still there. So it took me a little bit of time to kind of start fresh. And I think that's why it took, a good day to, empty it all and then
find
go,
your feet.
Yeah. And then kind of go from there. So, I think as well, the older you get, the more, as a kid, like, I got into this sport at 22. What do you have to worry about at 22? Like you're a kid, you're pretty naive and everything. Like, as I said, you feel invincible and you do one good race or one fast lap and you're like, yeah, I'm the best. So, I think the older you get, you realize that not everything is perfect and sometimes you will struggle, but I think that's where I really have enjoyed the struggles as much as they suck. They really allow you to search for some answers and learn more about yourself, and whether that's through self-learning or observing how others have observed me and hearing, how I'm being seen. I think it's all part of it.
Then, continuing with the drivers, we spoke to the king of the street circuits himself, Checo Perez, who, by the way, has had his best ever finish in Formula One. What a year Checo has had. So we sat down with him and his engineer, Hugh Bird. And here is Hugh Bird speaking about how difficult it can be to successfully guide a Formula One driver.
One of the peculiar things about my job is that quite often I'm telling Checo to do things slightly differently, but with absolutely no experience of that firsthand.
Yeah.
I'll present him with some data. Look, you could be doing this, try doing this. It'll be a faster way to go around that corner. But never experienced it for myself.
Would you want him to?
I love to. I love to sit back and tell him how to do it through the computer.
They should do like one random race where they just get the engineers, the race engineers driving the cars and the drivers controlling everything.
I'd love to do that because the driver is like fully on the limit, and then your race engineer will come and just make it faster.
Sure, it's so easy.
Yeah.
I'll just give you my laptop. And
Yeah, exactly. That will be a lot easier.
This is from Jay Jesus, who says, with the increasing emphasis on data analysis and simulation, how do you find the right balance between relying on data and trusting your instincts? I mean, I guess when it comes to data, that's where you would come in and you would say, you need to take this corner in this particular way. But then you're the guy on the track who's like, no, I know I want to take this corner this way. How do you know which way to lean?
Well, that's a major part of my job, trying to find that balance. So it does start with Checo's subjective feedback and that's guiding what we're doing, where we're going with the setup. But then I'm trying to marry that up with the data. And if I can explain why the balance in turn 5 was like this, with the previous corner, something else had happened, or there was a gust of wind, and maybe that's corrupted some of his feedback, then maybe trust more of the data. And if it reinforces what Checo's saying, then it's all a bit of a challenge to find the balance between the two.
I mean, there must have been a few moments where Hugh said to you, you should take this like this, and you go, no.
Yeah, a lot of times, because at the end of the day, you are in the car and you are trying to explain how you're feeling it, but he can see other things, like he just explained. So it's always finding that compromise.
And finally, we spoke to Max Verstappen. This was just after he had won his 3rd World Championship in a row. We had him and his rather lovely race engineer GP. And of course, how could we not speak to them about their iconic radio messages? Now, we've discussed the little cheeky radio messages that you've had between each other. Some of them a little bit heated, some of them a little bit cheeky. So, your challenge, we've got 3 clips here, and you will get half a point for each thing you get right. So I want the race and the year that this radio message happened. Okay, so we're going to go with clip number 1.
What a joke, mate. I can't even see where I'm going, so much vibration.
Understood, Max. Well, if it's a safety concern for you, we're happy to box.
I'll just visit the dentist after the weekend.
Clearly a very bumpy race for you.
Oh my God.
I don't think that was related to the track surface.
No, that was
tyre vibration, don't you think?
It must have been like 2020 in Silverstone, maybe.
Is that the answer you're going for?
I had Sochi in my mind, but maybe it's not.
Sochi. Oh, wait. No, because that was actually quite a good race. I was not saying what a joke.
Do you want to go Silverstone then?
No, I think I have to rely on
We're going to go
GP.
Sochi.
But the year.
Yeah, what year was it?
Because that can't be 2020.
19. This is completely wrong. I think that's...
Well, I mean, you're way off because none of that was right. It was Portugal in 2021. That's what it was.
Oh.
You remember it well, I see.
Oh, you guys...
It's an incredibly smooth track, so it must have been tyre vibration.
Yeah, I must have locked up.
Right, clip number 2.
Max, I think we're a little bit close for tyres at this stage.
Silverstone 2020, the 70th anniversary race.
You didn't even have to hear the whole entire clip.
I know exactly. I remember that, Max, you're too close to the cross. I was like, I could almost punch my own wheel.
It was that last bit. I'm not just sitting behind like a grandma.
Yeah, it was just,
Like we've discussed 3 hours before, you mean, Max, and you'd agreed to.
Yeah. And then I saw, I'm going to win this race. I was like, I'm not sitting behind. I'm going to push them.
Brilliant.
Because they were so quick that year. And I was like, this is maybe my only chances here to win it because we were better on tires that weekend due to the compound selection. And I was like, I'm going for it. Worst case, we finished P3 anyway. So
love it.
GP loved it as well.
Okay, clip number 3.
I can also push on and we do another stop. A little bit of bits of training.
Talked about it.
No, not this time.
Come on then, what was the race in the year?
Spa 23.
Is the correct answer.
No, not this time.
No pit stop training.
No.
And that's it for the Best of Talking Ball 2023. Thank you so much for listening or watching if you've been watching on YouTube for the first time ever. I've loved every second of it. As a Formula One fan, living the dream right now. Bring on next season.